But I was hoping that we'd get a couple more folks. Oh, hang on, I lost my agenda. All right. That's looking a little better. Right, gang? Everybody feeling good? Nice, beautiful day out there. All right. Why don't we get rolling tonight? Call the meeting to order. And very first up on our agenda is a report from the VSBA intern extraordinaire, Hayden Ross. Hayden, are you also the same Hayden that kept Senate Education running smoothly over the year?
Yes, thank you.
All right, dude, you did an excellent job. People should be envious of that organizational skill.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, but yeah, well, I don't know if Sue or others wanted to do a little introduction for us, or if Hayden, you just wanted to jump right in with your project.
I'll do a very short introduction. I'm very happy to introduce Hayden to the board. He has been our summer intern this year, and I have to say he has done an exemplary job. Those of us who spend a lot of time in the State House have known Hayden since January, when he started serving as the committee assistant to the Senate Education Committee, as Neil just mentioned, and performed that job at a very high level while finishing up his senior year at Spalding High School in Barry. And Hayden's going to tell you a little bit about himself, and he's heading off to Syracuse University in a few weeks. So we wish him the best of luck in his first year of college, and please enjoy his presentation to the board about the work that he's been doing this summer.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Let me get my slide deck here. Let's see. All right. How does that look?
Loading. But I bet it's coming. Hang on.
We saw it for a second and then it said loading.
There. Oh, there we go. I think the issue though is maybe when you went to presentation mode, I wonder if that's when we lost it.
It looks like maybe you have two screens, Hayden. You just want to go up and tell it to select the other screen. From Zoom at the top of in the Zoom menu, if you want to tell it to select the other screen. I can run it for you if you'd like me to. I have it. So would you prefer I do that?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'm a little dusty on my committee assistant Zoom tips.
Well, the other thing is Zoom has changed in the last week or so. They've added, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they've added a bunch of apps and stuff. So things have changed a little bit with it. Let me go ahead and open it.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, no problem. Well, it looks like you sent it to me in Acrobat, so I can show it that way. It's
Perfect.
not in PowerPoint. That's okay, though. We can still do it that way.
That's great.
All right, just 1 second. There you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for clearing out what I know is a very busy agenda for this meeting tonight. My name is Hayden, as Sue said, and I've been the VSBA summer intern. And it's been a great privilege of mine, and I'm happy to share with you the work that I've done. So just a little bit of background information about myself. Sue covered a lot of this, but my work this summer began as I graduated from Spalding High School in June, and it has stretched until August, where we are now. And in just a matter of days, I'll be heading off to college at Syracuse University. I will be majoring in public policy, and I will be a member of the Renee Crown University Honors Program. My work with the VSBA this summer has continued my interest in the field of public action, and I've truly learned how deep and complex education policy really is. So hats off to all of you for diving into it. My first project that was assigned to me revolved around social media, and the first bucket of this was posting to our social media platforms. And it is no secret today that we have to have a strong social media presence, and it's imperative to success, and it allows for a strong following to incur. With that being said, I worked on creating and scheduling new eye-catching posts on both the organization's Twitter and Facebook accounts to highlight the important work the VSBA does in terms of webinars, regional meetings, networking opportunities, and holiday celebrations. Using Canva and other free online softwares, I was able to create those digital graphics without incurring more costs for the organization, which I see as a big positive. One of the many facets of the organization's mission is to help assist all board members whenever possible, and I believe the expansion of social media will prove to do just that. And some of this sort of revolves around the accessibility point and how we have a lot of the key information on these social media accounts, and it's important that members can get it, members of the board can get it, and anyone who's following the organization's work. And continuing on, the next sort of bucket of this was an analysis project where I was tasked with looking at the social media accounts of other state school board organizations to see if we could possibly be doing anything different. I found many examples from states all across the country and shared them with the appropriate staff. However, my favorite of the ones I found was a legislative bill tracker for everything education related that members would want to know about. This would make it easy to look at from time to time and check the status of bills in the legislature and what the organization is doing to influence any of them. This is yet another example of how the organization can make the lives of school board members easier, and I look forward to seeing how it plays out. And the second half of this one was outreach and data collection, where in the second project, I finished all my social media work and I began contacting central offices with the state and to see really where their board stood in terms of student board members. With this information, I was able to compile a master spreadsheet going over who had student board members, how many, and what their selection process was like. And it was especially important to ask that last question because it is critical that all students have, that same opportunity to help their school board and aid in whatever way possible they can in its deliberative process. And the VSBA has a guide on how to best implement student board members to a given board. And from my conversations with those central offices, I think I can confidently say that this guide has been resourceful and used widespread. And the final piece of work I completed throughout my tenure this summer as an intern was an article highlighting the benefits of student board members. And I really enjoyed writing this a lot. You'll be able to see it in the next newsletter that's coming out. And I think that it's data back for the most point, looking at that guide that I was just talking about and how, these school boards can really use student members as an asset to them. And it not only speeds up efficiency, but it makes the entire process much more transparent and fair for all. And I'd just like to end by saying that I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to have served as an intern for the VSBA this summer. And I really have learned so many things. And recognizing that this was just the second time an intern has been hired, I hope that the organization continues to do this every summer and continue modernizing practices in social media and other fields. And again, I really appreciate you all carving out just a little bit of time in your packed agenda for me tonight.
Thank you, Hayden. Board members, do we have any questions for Hayden this evening?
Can I just add a little bit to that, please?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So Hayden has been working with me a lot, and I just want to say that he is absolutely amazing. The work that he's done for us. Oh, let me show my video. Sorry. The work that he's done for us with student board members is going to help us substantially in several ways to really understand what's already being done and how we can aid people to further their help with student board members. The social media stuff, the background research he's done, it's really going to help us substantially in the future. And I really thank you, Hayden, for all your work that you put into that.
Thank you. And Carrie has been there every step of the way, helping with all the questions I've had. I really appreciated all your help, Carrie.
All right, board members, any questions? Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, just curious, Hayden, about, it's interesting. All the social media stuff sounds fantastic. Going to be very helpful. Just wondering about our implementation of that. What's the plan for, in enhancing our public exposure here?
Right.
So
Yes.
what Hayden did, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Hayden.
go
Go
ahead,
right
Carrie.
ahead. I was just going to say that what Hayden did for our social media side is that because the summer is not really heavy time for school board members, but the fall is. So what we did was I had him set up a calendar of events for September through December through February, I think it was. And he set up our social media to be automatic, to everything to go up automatically. So you may not have noticed an uptick in our social media in the summer because that wasn't really our goal. Our goal was to have him work for our fall, which is our busy time and the time when we need as much help as possible. So you'll see in our social media, if you don't already follow us on Facebook and Twitter, please do, because you'll see a huge uptick in starting mid-August through February.
Okay, I was also, just as a quick follow-up, the bill tracker that you found, who produces that?
I want to say at least the organization that I saw it off of was the Texas Association of School Boards.
Okay.
I think they did it, and theirs was so long because of how many bills Texas has. But I think if in just some version we had that, it would be really impactful for all the board members.
Any other questions? Flora, go ahead. And then I see Mark Schauber next.
Thank you, Hayden. As I said before, I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you in person, but it sounds amazing. I wonder if you would want to share with us, since we are all going back to school, to our boards pretty soon, our first meeting in August. If you had any aha moments when you were looking at the social, not the social media, but the student, the difference of having student in boards or not across the state. What was more significant to you? Like, is there more, you can share whatever, but a highlight of that work would be awesome.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would say my biggest aha moment was in the school boards that were doing it differently than what we had suggested in the guide. It's really not my place to make sort of conclusions on their processes, but I think that some of them could have been a little bit more equitable for the students than others. I think some of them, the school board chairs perhaps knew the student personally and they were very comfortable with them being a student board member. And they perhaps might not have opened it up to everybody. So I think if possible, trying to look at the guide and see how we can wrap everyone into the same process and selecting those student board members.
Also, Floor, just can I say that this is step one of what we're processing into. Mid-November, we are starting a forum for student board members that'll be every 6 weeks on Zoom. And we're going to take the information from Hayden's report and start looking into how we can mold those forums that will be most useful for them.
Thank you, Carrie. Mark Schubert, go ahead.
So Hayden, first of all, thank you for that presentation and for all the work that you did, as well as during the legislative session. And good luck. I think you're going into your senior year, if I remember correctly. So good luck with that.
Thank you. I'm going into my first year. Thank you, though.
First year. Okay, I apologize. I don't even know what year it is. There is a bill tracking service that I use called LegiScan, which is a free one for individuals, but institutes can purchase. I don't know if that's the basis of what they used in Texas. I originally found it when I was actually searching for some legislation that was going on in Texas. So it may have been why I got turned on to it. But that's something that I use quite extensively, and anybody can sign up for a free account for LegiScan. LegiScan, I think. If you're looking to track bills for a particular legislature and topic.
And I know that VT Digger also tried to implement that as well this year. They sort of only focused on the big hitters, the main bills. So if they found a way to extend that to all the bills introduced in the legislature next year, I think that would have some real potential.
Good public good.
Any other questions from board members? Hayden, I'm actually kind of curious, from the work that you did in the State House and the work that you've done for us, when you look at social media, do you see any drawbacks when it's being used in the political arena?
That's a great question. I wouldn't necessarily say drawbacks. I would look at it as more of an opportunity to get that bigger following in, and I don't want to say persuade people, but get them under the familiarize them with the organization. I would say I would see it as an opportunity to familiarize them with the organization rather than politicizing it, as school boards are vastly different, and the organization is here to serve all of them.
Okay, thank you for the advice. Anything else, board members? Otherwise, we can let Hayden go about the rest of his evening. David, go ahead.
Hayden, maybe I didn't hear it correctly, but are your findings will be made available to all the different school boards? Primarily, I'm wondering if there are lessons learned from your social media survey that local boards should be using and learning from.
That's a great question, and I'm not 100% sure on the answer. I know that the article that I wrote on student board members, that'll be published in the newsletter, which I think will be available on the website. In regards to my other findings, I would be happy to connect with you on an email one-on-one and talk about the list that I had compiled.
Right, the information, the social medias that he created will be available on our social media from mid-August through February. And also the reports that he provided to us will be used for the VSBA moving forward to help us to make our plans moving forward.
Okay, thanks. I may take advantage of your offer, Hayden. I'll reach out to you at some point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us tonight and let us know that what the great work was that you were doing over the summer. Say hi to Otto the Orange for us when you get there. Okay, go Big Orange.
Will do. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, gang. We are going to move on in our agenda, and next up is a report of the Resolutions Committee. Before I turn it over to Flora and the Resolutions Committee to just dive in, just one sort of piece of administrative business. We have in the past sometimes got wrapped around the axle when it came to the motions that we wanted to make associated with the recommendations for the resolutions. I would suggest this evening, in order to make things simple, the motion tonight should just be whether or not this body moves to recommend pass, do not pass, or take no action. Sometimes we've made attempts in the motion to try to acknowledge the recommendation that came from the committee, and that just got really complicated really fast. So when we're at the point this evening for each of these, when we want to take a motion on things, just move what the position you believe this body should have related to the recommendation. Make sense? Michael Inners, you got a hand up already.
Just real quick, procedurally at this point, it's still a majority vote. The 60% doesn't kick in until we get to the.
Correct, because these are motions that would establish this board's recommendation for, pass, do not pass, take no action. When the resolutions actually go in front of membership in the fall at the annual meeting, that's when they need to pass by a 2/3 margin in order to be approved. Good point, though. All right, with that, Flor, do I turn it over to you for going through these?
Yes, and I'll try to do it as efficient as possible. I first wanted to start, well, good evening, everybody. I first wanted to start by thanking our committee for all the work. Not everybody is here, so I was gonna read the names quickly. So Gaston, Suzanne, Martine, Michael Inners, Mark Kaufman was actually not able to join us because he was being flooded and had been evacuated. Colleen, Adrian, Nancy, Jim, and Mark are, some of you are here with us, and we couldn't have done this without you. And then most importantly, I didn't want to forget to thank both Sandra and Cara, who made it possible, the report that you see there. I see your hand, Diane, but Neil, how do you want me to address that? Back to you, Neil. And then
yeah, I mean, Diane, is it just a procedural question here, what we're doing, or yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, Flor, you could have continued. I just wanted to know before we got into it, usually when I see a committee recommendation, we look at it as it's a sort of a seconded recommendation, and all we do is we take a vote yay or nay to agree. So, I was trying to get back to what Neil said. Do you plan to have us vote on each individual one or the package of them? How will that work? Just kind of wanted to set up the process in my mind for that.
Okay, I'll get to that, I promise.
Perfect. Thank you.
So first, again, because I think it got lost, Cara and Sandra, thank you for all your work. I think everybody should recognize the packet that you see with you is impossible because of them and their support. So now moving into what the question that Diane was asking, I first wanted to say that the resolutions committee first of all, received a packet with everything that was submitted, plus the resolutions that came from our committee. And we sent an equity lens, which I thought it would be important to mention today. We didn't share that equity lens with you, but we took our time. I don't think that should add weight, but because you guys didn't look at an equity lens, I wanted to just put a couple of things in your mind when you are doing the vote, just especially one question. So make sure to, check your biases regarding any of the stakeholders or any of the assumptions that you already have from your past experience. So just approach this decision with an open mind and really make sure to think about which groups will be affected by this resolution, right? Those are just a couple of the questions. I'm not going to go through all the questions, but I thought that would set the tone for what we're doing. Then after that, I'm going to go through each resolution as quickly as possible, just concentrating on the last and the word areas. So you had time to read the packet. I will share a brief description of why the committee came to that conclusion, but that should not affect the way that you vote. You're free to vote, which regardless of the position of our committee, you're free to vote however you want to vote. So I don't, we're doing the work for you. Once we get to the second part, I'm hoping that we can do by slate the proposed amendments and the proposed for our existing and current resolutions. Then all the new resolutions, we're going to go one by one. Is that sort of clarifies it, Diane? Okay, so let's get started because we have a lot. Any other questions before we get started? No, okay. So number one, from the Muscoy Valley School Board, we have the elimination of the requirements of federal grant assessments for the Vermont school districts. The recommendation of the committee was to do not pass. And I will read to you some highlights. Our biggest thing was that there was a lot to understand and that we didn't feel that we knew enough to have an opinion. So most school districts rely on grants and we don't really understand how much of a burden is on the state. So we decided that we were just wondering if we could look at a more holistic approach and consider if they will rewrite, which we wrote to them, to the chair, rewrite it and maybe submit if not submit at the annual meeting, look at a study, but we felt that it was not what we needed right now. I will let other committee Cara, I don't know if you have something to add to that. I did follow up with Jennifer but I would be looking for just that clarification point. Neil, do you want me to ask for a motion or do you want to ask for the motion?
I am fine either way, Flora. If it's
Okay.
easier for you to just keep going with your presentation, then by all means, go ahead and do that.
Okay, so I guess I will be asking for a motion to pass, do not pass, or take action, and then we'll do discussion. Does that make sense, just to expedite the process? Because we have 9 resolutions. Mark?
So I'll move that we recommend to not pass the resolution.
And I will second that, Dan MacArthur.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dan. Okay, open for discussion. Jim?
I just wanted to, I think a lot of us found that we didn't really know that this even existed. And so I do want people to be aware that it is pretty significant, actually. The percentage, it's essentially the state teachers retirement system. So the fund itself gets a cut out of each of these each of these grants, and it's not insubstantial. It had been slightly over 20%, and then it's just increased to over 25% of the grant amount. So I think this is, I know in my district, we're talking about, like close to a couple $100,000 that we're paying away of grant money that we get. I think this is something, it's a really good point that was brought up by Mrs. Coy. I just think, what our discussions led to was an understanding that we really need more study and understanding of, maybe there is a good rationale for 25% of the grant going to the teachers retirement system, but it's definitely worthy of the attention of the VSBA, I think. But it's just that we need to understand better before we take a strong position. So that just
Thank you,
Added
Jim.
info.
Yeah, yeah. Mark and then Michael Inners.
So I pretty much agree with what Jim said. Just one slight change. I have a really hard time seeing how 20 or 25% of grants should be going to a retirement fund. So I think this is a really important topic for the VSBA to learn about and stay on top of. And probably is something that we should be pushing for a change for once we have an understanding of it. I think there's just way too many open questions at this point to move forward with this.
Thank you, Mark. Michael?
Yeah, I did some digging afterwards. The websites weren't up at the time because of the weather conditions, but the scary thing is that first of all, it only applies to the salary. It's not the entire grant. And the second thing is that that's actually the actuarial percentage that we should be paying on all of our teachers if we're going to catch up with the underfunding on the teachers' retirement system. That's what the actuaries determined should be being paid in if we were going to actually cover all the benefits. So that's actually, it's more of a symptom of the underfunding of the teacher retirement system. Now, whether or not they should be trying to make that up with federal grant money is another question entirely, but the number doesn't come out of thin air. It's actually determined by the underfunding of the retirement system. That's what we really should be paying on everybody, which is really scary. So.
Thank you, Michael. Diane?
Thank you for bringing that up because I was wondering about the underfunding, the chronic underfunding and how that all related. My question is, who will take the lead to investigate the true purpose of this, when it got started, why it got started, and the positive side versus just the negative side of it for us? Will that be our executive director? How will we get this information?
I think first we have to decide as a board if we want to take this on, and there were
Let's hope 4 comes back. Okay, in the meantime, oop,
recommendation for that happened.
we lost you there, Flora.
My internet is unstable. I know. So can you hear me now?
You're back.
Okay,
You're
can
still a
you
little
hear me now? I
choppy
don't know what
here.
happened.
A little choppy, but better.
Or would you like me to send you the phone number to call in?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? No, it's just
Yes.
very windy out of the sun here, and it's sort of causing a little bit of internet. Yeah. Oh, that would.
We can hear you better now.
Right now. Okay, I'm gonna leave my camera off for a little bit, and hopefully this wind is gonna die down, because otherwise we might lose me completely, and Cara and Sandra might have to take over. Okay, so what part could you hear?
Just the very beginning of your explanation, but I do also know that Jim's got his hand up and he might have some valuable information to add to this discussion.
Jim, go ahead.
Okay, no, I thank you, Michael, for checking that out, because I'm happy to be a part of the discussion, just because I represent the VSBA on the Vermont Pension Investment Commission, and so I'm kind of in the weeds on some of this stuff, and I think Michael, the point you brought up is this is intended to cover not only the current cost, but also the catch up of the underfunding. that's fundamentally sort of a problematic issue. And I think, you know, I'm happy to, you know, essentially we've got, you know, there are catch-up provisions, the annual catch-up amount that's required to be put into the pension fund for the teachers is a multiple of the normal cost, which is what it normally would be put in on an annual basis. And trying to make that up with a, you know, 1 year or 2 year higher position is, you know, is fundamentally questionable. But just wanted to, you know, so appreciate you getting that info, Michael, and just wanted to say I'm happy to be a part of that, looking at the issue and trying to understand it, and you know, help develop a position just from my role in the Pension Investment Commission.
Thank you, Jim. So Diane, does that answer your question? That Neil, so should this be going into a part as a part of something for future agenda items? Can you still not hear me? Sorry.
You're breaking up a little bit, but we can certainly consider it as a future agenda item, but also know that, as Jim just mentioned, right, he is sort of uniquely involved in this as the VSBA rep on the Pension Investment Committee. So we do have some folks on the inside on this that can follow the issue and report back to VSBA.
Okay, David?
So my question is, if this is actually a serious issue, I didn't understand it from looking at the resolution, but the explanations have been very helpful. Why has the committee recommended that we don't pass it? Why isn't there, say, send it back for rewriting or some other approach so that it stays active and doesn't just disappear?
We did request for a rewrite, David. We reached out to the chair and we requested for a rewrite for either a study or just a rewrite, and they did not get back to us. So they could still come back to the, as written, the committee felt that it do not pass was the best action. Michael? You're muted.
As written, we're calling for them not to pay into the retirement system at all, and I don't think that's the right answer either. That was my take on it.
So are we ready for the vote, or is there any more discussion? Diane?
Yeah, I just want to point out that if we had this much difficulty sort of even understanding the background of this, all of this discussion, unless it's clarified by the time it comes to the annual meeting, will have to be re-explained again. So, and that always is a little frustrating because it would be better to have the details so that people would understand more about why we were suggesting one way or another.
Okay, is my internet stable now? The wind seems to die down a little bit,
We can hear you. Yeah.
so.
Or maybe not.
Okay, good. All right, and I have to make it. So any more discussion or I'm sorry. Are we ready to vote in the motion?
I believe you are for.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Kara and Sandra, you're helping count.
And just to clarify,
1, 2,
Flora, they're
3,
in favor
4,
of a
6,
do
7,
not
8, 9,
pass.
11. Do not pass, and the motion was moved by Mark and second by Dan. All right. I think it's a unanimous vote. All right. So, David, you have your, okay, so moving into the second resolution from North Country Supervisory Union. Oops, sorry. Use of surplus education funds. The recommendation from the committee was to do not pass. We understood the aspirational, and Gaston is not here to speak to it, but we understood the aspirational part of directing the funds for creative endeavors, but how the money was going to be divided was problematic. We like the intent, but the intent of the resolution is too narrow and restrictive in how to spend surplus money. We had a bigger discussion than that, but that sort of summarizes what the committee thought. So I did it a little. So now again, I would be looking for a motion to pass, do not pass, or take no action. And then we'll move into discussion.
I'll make a motion
Lord,
to,
Mark,
sorry.
go ahead, Bart. All
I
you.
was gonna say, yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the committee's recommendation to not pass.
Okay. So a motion
second.
to not pass and second by Mark. All right. Discussion. Questions? I don't see any hands up. My internet seems to be stable, so I don't think I'm missing anything. So that's ready to vote in the motion. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3. Oh, looks to be unanimous again. All right, great, thank you. That was easy. Okay, the next one is from Addison Northwest School District, is the collaboration to benefit all students. If this one also was hard for the committee, trying to read a lot into this, doubling down in existing resolutions was one term that was used. Not clear or what is being asked of us. We asked for more information. Mark unfortunately was not able to join us today. We know that the intent was collaboration to benefit all students, but as written, the committee felt that we could not pass it. So again, I would be looking for a motion to pass, do not pass, or take no action, and then we'll move into discussion.
Flora, maybe before you take the motion, I just want to say I did get an email from Mark.
Oh, yeah.
So while he was unable to attend tonight, he did want to, he did share some thoughts on this. And I don't know, do you want me to read what he sent now?
Yeah,
or
that'd
do
be
you want to?
great.
Okay, so for benefit of the board, this is what Mark Koenig had sent to me just this afternoon. He said, the idea behind the Addison Northwest School District's proposed resolution was that it would be beneficial if VSBA, VPA, VSA, and possibly other similar organizations put together a task force that would review the work of the state school board and the AOE, both of which fall under the authority of the governor, and present findings to the governor in January of 2025, early enough in the legislative session to maybe accomplish something. The whereas clauses of the proposed resolution list various projects or programs undertaken by the AOE or mandated to local school boards which have not produced expected results or caused more problems than they solved. The Addison Northwest School District Board was not trying to condemn the AOE, but rather point out that the agency is overburdened and understaffed. A group one step removed from government, but still heavily invested in public education, might be able to highlight for the governor a better road forward.
Mark Schober.
I'll just move that we recommend do not pass on the resolution.
Thank you, Mark. Could I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Bart. Any discussion? Mark,
So I don't know if this is relevant or not, but when we were discussing this in committee, there was a little bit of confusion as to whether or not this resolution was actually asking the governor to appoint an entire new Board of Ed. I think we finally figured out that that wasn't what they were asking, but the wording itself wasn't 100% clear. So anyway, I just want to point that out in case that were to come up at the annual meeting.
thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, it looks like we're ready to vote on the motion as moved by Mark and second by Bart to do not pass. So all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. So we can have a count. 1. Okay, it's unanimous again. Great, good work, guys. So moving to resolution number 4 from Norwich School District. So we were split, so we took no action. They, you know, I think there were 2 thoughts on this. I felt that they were asking the legislature to look at it, not to do it. Some felt that they were asking the legislature to do it. Neil is with us, so is it okay, Neil, if I let you speak to it for a minute?
I mean, I think I would be very brief, right? It's I find this whole thing to be a little bit of a fuzzy area for conflict of interest. We were asking for a study or a review. But I don't know that I want to get into too much more on this.
Okay. So what we learn is that this has been a concern of Norwich for a long time, right? So this is why they're coming to us. They were not aware that there was a study already. Martine thought that there was a study before. We couldn't really find that study. So we were divided. So we could just, some felt that it was too broad. So again, I would be looking for a motion, and then we can either vote that motion up or down. Dan?
I would like to make a motion that we recommend that this be passed.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. And do I have a second?
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Michael Inners, do you have?
Yeah, I mean, there are constitutional issues with this proposal. I think they're perhaps fixable, but I had a real hard time. We sort of were split. We were pretty much split exactly down the middle on it. I understand what Norwich is getting at. It does seem illogical that residents are paying more than non-residents. But there's also a problem with setting different non-resident tax rates in different towns. I don't think that's constitutional under state constitution. So I'm going to oppose the motion.
Thanks, Michael. Mark?
Yeah, for me, it really came down to the constitutional issue. We'd be advocating for not just an impact study, but really the wording is such that we'd be advocating for there being 2 separate non-residential tax rates, which would be on the surface unconstitutional. So that really is my major concern. I also had a more minor concern, which is that towns fluctuate. Sometimes they're higher, sometimes they're lower. My town, for the first time in in quite a while. The non-residential is higher than the residential, but it goes back and forth. So I the constitutional issue is my main concern. And I don't think I don't think the wording here gives us a way around that.
Thanks, Mark. Dan?
Yeah, so I disagree about that because I think the wording, the resolution itself is, standard fare, examine impact and feasibility of raising, not raising. So if we go forward and say, this has led to vast inequities in many, many towns, 88 of them around the state. Studying the impact and feasibility doesn't mean that it will come necessarily to the unconstitutional conclusion. So that's the reason why I feel like it's useful to look at.
Thank you, Dan. Adrian? You're muted, Adrian, or is me? Maybe you double mute it yourself sometimes because you have your earbuds and the phone. No, I don't know.
Try disconnecting the earbuds.
Yeah. Okay, Neil, go while Adrian figures out her unmute button.
Just a clarification for me. I was curious what provision of the Constitution would a different tax rate violate?
Mark, I do not know. I will not attempt to answer that question. Mark?
I couldn't tell you the specific one. I have very few of the articles memorized, but it's the requirement. It's the fact that we would be taxing the same group entity at different rates. So you'd have, if this were implemented, you'd have some towns with one non-residential rate and other towns with a different non-residential rate. Because all you'd be doing is raising the non-residential rate to the homestead for the towns where it was lower.
Thanks, Mark. Adrian, do you want to give it a try again? Maybe type it on the chat. So sorry, Adrian. Jim?
Yeah, just kind of, this is kind of following up on Mark. I think since what you're really talking about is changing, you're not just changing to 2 non-homestead tax rates. You could have 88 different homestead tax rates because, for each town, it's raising it. So it really, it would be a massive change to the current system, which, I'm not arguing that the current system is right or perfect or anything like that, but I think it would certainly, at this point, I think a lot of because we're talking not just second homeowners, but talking businesses, everything else, and a lot of those folks, have a tendency to view that if the district makes decisions that create a higher tax rate, then we have less of we're less involved because we don't have kids in the schools and stuff like that. So you guys can make different decisions, but then you're putting the cost onto the non-residential. I could see arguments either way, but I think this is it's worth studying, and I think we should be constantly studying, and I think we ask for it in our current resolutions for looking at better ways to raise funds for education. But I think this is a very specific one that I just don't think this one should take precedence over our broader look at the education funding system.
Thank you, Jim. And Adrian, I don't know if she's unmuted, but she posted on the chat. She says, I am bothered by the whole idea. This idea was that the idea was that the homestead rate is indicative of what the town spends. The idea was always to insulate non-residents. Sorry for the caps. Oh, sorry, that's it. Yeah. So I just want to, one other clarification, I'm not trying to persuade you one way or another, is that my understanding from the Be It Resolve is they're asking for a study. So we already have a lot of questions. Is it constitutional? It's not constitutional. So by asking for the study, I don't know that we are making a decision one way or another, but maybe that could help us answer some of the questions. But we have a motion on the we have a motion on the table by Dan and second by Mark to pass. So with that in mind, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. We have Mark, Lisa, Dan. I have 3. And Dan, who am I missing? 3. And Neil, you're not voting on this. And yeah, so then, okay. So the motion fails. I don't think we have a need to ask for no's, or should I ask for no's? Or maybe there's abstentions. All those not in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Dan, do you want to put yours down? MacArthur, yeah, right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no, 7, no. 8, no. 8, no. Yeah, 8, I can't count. 8, no. Yeah. Okay. Any abstentions? I think everybody was accounted for. All right. So the motion. So do not pass. All right, so moving into
Although
no,
for technically, I think, so the motion to recommend passage failed. I think you might need to take another motion for what the record, because you've got 3 possible scenarios.
sure. Okay,
So the motion, another motion would be either to do not pass or take no position. Those are your 2 choices, do not pass or take no position.
so we're looking for a motion. There's 2 hands up, Dan MacArthur.
I'm going to make a motion that we recommend do not pass, just to smooth the waters here.
Okay, so Dan, and then second by Jim or Mark, Michael. It's like everybody's like one after the other. So I'm giving it to Jim. Salzgiver. All right. Any more discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor of the motion to not pass, please signify by raising your hand so we can count. 1, 2.
I'm sorry, Fleur, can you tell me who the second was?
So Dan MacArthur made the motion, Jim Salzgiver seconded to do not pass. And then you guys did the count, Sandra and Cara. I'm looking for 8. 8. Okay, that's the same. Okay, all those opposed to the motion to do not pass, I don't know that it really matters at this point, but let's count them. Please raise your hand. You have 1. Should have 3, but I have 1. Okay, I just saw Mark. So, okay.
I just want to abstain.
Okay, so, and anybody to abstain besides Diane? Please raise your hand. I just see one. Okay, so, oh, two, Dan McCarthy. All right. Is that okay? Everybody cleared? Sue, does that clarify? Yeah, and Neil? Good, okay. So Norwich, sorry, moving on to Winooski School District Youth Mental Health. The recommendation of the board was to pass as a regular resolution. Do you want me to talk about it? Or was it pretty clear? I can give you, sorry, I just got out of my little spreadsheet here. Back on the. So to me, the most important thing is that this resolution, from all the things that we talked, it gives our leaders, so Sue and the staff, ground to stand when they have to testify. That would be this short version of the committee discussion. The committee did this. There was full support from the committee to pass as a. To pass this resolution as mental health. Mark.
I'll move that we recommend passing as a regular resolution.
Thank you, Mark. A second. Diane. Thank you. And now we can discuss.
This meeting is being recorded.
Any discussion? Okay. Oh, Jim.
Who was, Floor, can you tell me who the second was? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, so we have Mark and Diane. Diane Kirsten Glickman. To pass as a regular resolution. Okay, Jim.
No, just real quick, I was going to point out, we did discuss a little bit the fact that we already have a couple of resolutions, existing resolutions that are very similar. At the same time, I think the whole committee felt that, while we don't like to repeat resolutions, there's enough subtlety to it, and you can't make this point too many times, frankly. So it was fine with passing it as an additional resolution, even though it's kind of covered.
Thank you, Jim. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to pass as a regular resolution, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. Am I right? The parliamentarians. 9. Okay. All those opposed to the resolution, please signify by raising your hand to the motion. Sorry, not to the resolution. I see none. Any abstentions? I'm seeing none. Okay. So moving into our next resolution. This is by our resolutions committee. So this is the flavored tobacco. Am I doing just 6? The flavored tobacco products. This was on your packet. And the recommendation of the committee was to pass as a regular resolution. And I think there was a lot to talk about this, but again, this gave, the marketing is targeted to children, is predatory. Kids are targeted. There was a really very big discussion on this resolution, and we felt that it was needed. Let me see on top of. Diane,
I'm just going to make the motion to pass. You can't put too fine a point on it or say it over and over again. So, yeah, I think we should
Yeah.
pass.
and Nancy will second it. So Diane moves to pass as a regular resolution and Nancy seconds. And then we can, any discussion? I think the packet was pretty clear. I don't know what else could I say to this resolution is just really important, and it gives them, good support from the board to testify. Mark?
But I just wanted to say that one of the, as Floyd just said in regards to testimony, one of the reasons for this is a belief that this is going to come up in the next legislative session. And we will be asked as an organization to testify. So to give direction, we thought that it was important.
Okay, so I don't see any other hands up. So moving this along, all those in favor of the motion to pass the resolution as a regular resolution, moved by Diane and second by Nancy, please. You guys are already there. Raise your hand, signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do I have that right? Yep. 9, what did you say, Sandra? 8, yeah, okay, I can still count. What's your? All right. All those opposed to passing, please signify by raising your hand. David, did you, okay. Any abstentions? Seeing none. This resolution 6 passes. The number 7 resolution, it was from the resolutions committee again, is the separation of church and state. I know that we could take the recommendation of the committee was to pass as a regular resolution. I know that we would probably have a lively discussion on this. I think to me, what I got from the committee, we had a good discussion, is that really the intent of this is to make sure that we have separation of church and state, which we do not have in record. So that would sort of summarize it. We can have more discussion. I would be looking for a motion to pass, do not pass. Mark?
So I'll move that we recommend pass as a regular resolution.
Thank you, Mark. Could I have a second? I have 2 hands up, Diane. Well, Nancy has her 2 fingers, so Diane.
Choose whichever one you want.
She beat you because she had double like energy there. Sorry.
That's fine, as long as Carrie knows who to write down.
Carrie, you got that?
Which one did you go with?
I went with Nancy because she had hand, virtual hand and normal hand. I don't know. Okay, discussion. Jim.
I'll be quick on this. I won't belabor it, but this is our territory in my district, and essentially the issue here is we do have a bit of a constitutional issue, and it would be good to solve it. I think that to me, the reading of this, that General Assembly taking action to put us into compliance is sort of a it's a leading approach to we have a problem that needs to be dealt with. How we deal with it, ideally we'd actually deal with it in the courts, but nobody has the guts to kind of to take it to that point. So it's a difficult issue, but just kind of giving an idea of why I vote, I'm going to be voting no. So.
Thanks, Jim. David?
Yes, I'm kind of recommending a take no action, because I believe when the legislature made a motion and was working through the House and then to the Senate. The Senate ultimately did not move the bill onto the floor because they wanted to give time for the process. The State Board of Education has certain rules in place, and if they have a chance to work, it's perhaps they will solve the problem. So rather than solve a problem that we're not sure exists just yet, I think we should follow that guidelines, take no action, and see if the Rule 2200 from the State Board of Education, when it takes hold, actually has the impact that we're seeking.
Thank you, David. Mark?
So the conflict between SCOTUS and Vermont's Constitution exists this moment. We are currently paying public dollars into religious schools. That is a violation of Article 3 of our state constitution. Also, the legislature doesn't want to react. They want a lawsuit to force their hand. And whether or not that happens is a separate story, but there is a conflict that currently exists. River Valleys sends a check now to a private religious school, and that is paid with tax dollars. And I'm sure many other districts in the state are doing the same thing. So we are violating our own state constitution by doing that. One can say, SCOTUS supersedes everything, but there is still a conflict that needs to be resolved, be it legislatively, in the courts. And what I like about this particular be it resolved is that it is asking the legislature to bring us in line with Article 3 rather than what some are asking for, which is to remove that from our constitution to allow the payments to continue. And to me, that is a huge problem, not just because of education, but it opens the door to an unbelievable amount of money going to religious institutions. So that's one of the things that I happen to like about the way this resolution is worded. So thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, also I was with a district that had to sign off on the AOE settlement on the lawsuit that was proceeding. And language that I wouldn't count on the AOE doing anything really to fix this problem, because that settlement language specifically disclaimed any kind of protections against funding religious instruction. And I don't see how the AOE could really solve this problem without violating that settlement agreement. So I think waiting for the AOE to fix it with the regulations, I think is just gonna delay action.
Okay, so David?
It's not the AOE, it's the State Board of Education has Rule 2200 that talks about discrimination and not allowing discrimination, and that would effectively address the issue.
No, I don't think it would, because the question in my mind is, we're not just funding education and discrimination, we're funding direct religious services in some of these schools, in many of these schools, I'll say. We're funding clergy.
So I don't see any other hands up. So with that, all those in favor of the resolution of separation of church and state to pass as a regular resolution, as moved by Mark and second by Nancy, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that right? 8, yes. Okay. Any opposed? 1, 2. Okay, 2 opposed. So the motion carries. Moving, I'm having every intention of giving it to you on time, Neil. We're still have a few minutes. So, but
Doing fine. Keep going. Doing fine.
okay, so restraint and seclusion is also a committee resolution. And we had a lively discussion on this resolution too. To me, the most important thing, again, and I sound a little bit of a broken record with this, is that this would give a foundation for our executive director and Cara and Sandra, when they are at the State House, to be able to write testimony and to testify for us. So have that little thought in your head while you're looking. You guys all read that that resolution. The committee was divided in this issue. Some felt that were worried about lawsuits, had got different recommendations from their own superintendent. Some felt that restraint is necessary. Others felt that there was too much going on right now, that more training needed to happen. But some really wanted to be cautious about what good intentions are, and opening up ourselves for possible lawsuits. Let me see what is. We have some data that we don't have enough. For some of us, we don't have enough reporting. And we felt that some groups are more affected than others. And this really, gives clear guidance to Sue and the staff. But we can have I think this is worth to discuss as a full board. So if I could have the recommendation was to do not pass. But if I could have a motion either to pass it, to take no action, or do not, Diane?
I move to support the committee recommendation of do not pass.
Okay. Second by Jim. Diane, Jim, okay. Discussion, and I actually, Cara, if you want to speak to this and anything that please go ahead.
I'll wait until you discuss as a board, and then I'm happy to come in at the end and just offer our perspective, as in terms of our involvement with the legislature.
Thanks, Cara. Neil?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the board is aware, right? This resolution came from our own resolutions committee, in fact, from VSBA staff, based on experience that they had in the legislature during the last session, and anticipating that we're going to be asked for a position on this issue coming into the next legislative session. And the language that you see here is not, arbitrary. It's fairly well thought out. And, on behalf of I believe our executive director feels that this is an important issue, and that this is, the position that the organization should entertain. And so I hope that folks take that into consideration when considering your position on whether to pass or not to pass this. It's coming from our very own VSBA leadership.
Thank you, Neil. Diane?
Yeah, I guess I was confused. So I definitely wanted to just get this motion on the table the way it is. Being in the school system, I thought we were already doing all of this. So if my VSBA leadership tells me that there is a gap in what we're doing, I just thought that there were all these rules were already on the books. We get so much training about where and how we can do any restraint and any seclusion, and so much avoidance of having it happen at all. And that's certainly just my one district that I work in, that I just was puzzled why this was necessary. So I'd look forward to being educated as to why.
Neil, I could speak to that a little bit if you'd like, or Floor.
Yes, go ahead, Sue.
Okay, thank you. So there is a bill that we were asked to testify last session, and then it got rescheduled. So I did not need to ask the VSBA board for a position on it, but I know that it's definitely there was quite a bit of testimony on it. I believe it's H405 and sorry, H409 had a long list of sponsors, and the House Education Committee took a fair amount of testimony on it. Basically, that bill proposes to prohibit the use of physical restraints and seclusion in an entity that owns, operates, or controls a school or educational program that receives public funds from the state. And if physical restraints or seclusions are used, the bill proposes to require reporting and documentation as required by the State Board of Education. And it also requires the AOE to develop and implement a performance review system to define and monitor the use of physical restraint or seclusion, as well as provide technical assistance by developing, implementing, and providing technical assistance to support evidence-based programs that reduce the likelihood of physical restraint or seclusion. So I think it sounded to me from the evidence, from the testimony that I heard in the House Education Committee, that it is variable around the state from district to district. There was a superintendent from the Harwood district who came in and testified not for the VSA, but for his own district in support of this, and spoke about the high number of restraints and seclusions that had been happening in their district in the past, and the work that they had done to reduce that number. So that basically, if there is no resolution on this, I'll be coming to the VSBA board for direction on how to respond to this H409, because I feel I'm definitely going to be asked to testify on it.
Thank you, Sue. That was really helpful. Jim?
Yeah, I totally understand where Sue's coming from and all. I guess, my reaction after bringing it to my district, my superintendent and all that was the same as Diane. Because the impression was that the existing system in place already provides, the thought was it provides largely what this is calling for, including a very robust reporting and data collection and all. I think that the concern was when I provided this, showed the language, the specific language, because people in our system felt that, they totally understand this is an important issue, but they were concerned that the language as presented would actually, this is something that already takes a great amount of resources within our system. The HHB overall, and we're having to hire more people to handle the existing load of reporting, which is fine. You've got to be very careful, but the concern within my system was that there are already things in place. If people are following the requirements, then then we have in place things to ensure that the concern here is taken care of. And if we just start to add, if we add on more requirements and reporting and all that on top of what's already there, then we're sort of making it difficult for our school districts to operate. I don't know whether that's a fair assessment. That's the feedback I got. And, I think this is, we need to give Sue very clear direction. I think, so for my district, I got a please vote no on this, but at the same time, recognizing that it's an important issue, people are going to push it. It's just, we want to make sure that whatever changes are made in this area are logical, and I don't know whether what was presented in H409 was really, you know, even though it went through a lot of testimony and all, I don't know whether that's actually the best outcome. So enough.
Thank you, Jim. Diane?
So it sounds like, just in looking over this, that they feel that the certain governing rules in Rule Series 4 or 500 is not strong enough. And so if that's the feeling, and that's what we're responding to, that our current rules and laws are not very strong, although in some districts they may be stronger because there is leeway as to how a district responds to it. And we want everyone to re-examine that, then I think that makes more sense to me. I have to come at it from the perspective of what I've seen, and certainly as a school nurse, we have to examine every student that's been under restraint and seclusion. So I'm kind of like, I'm familiar with it, but I didn't go into the whole law and the rules, and was not aware that there was high variability district to district. So that makes a difference to me as well. I'm just not sure if we shouldn't just wait and sort of weigh in when it comes up, though, as you said, Sue.
So I think to clarify, this gives them guidance, right? Oh, Neil, go ahead, and then I'll.
No, well, just to the last point that Diane made, which is a good point, but I just want to remind folks, right, that the resolution process is a little bit more encompassing, right? So you get full membership in theory to weigh in on these positions, versus if we didn't bring this forward or it got voted down at the annual meeting, then you're turning to the legislative committee to determine the position of the VSBA at that point. And so, you know, in my mind, I think presenting this to membership and knowing that we need a recommendation, and if we present it to a membership with a do not pass recommendation, it's guaranteed to come back to the legislative committee at that point.
That's a good point, Neil. And I just wanted to add that, again, that this just gives them guidance. And if you're already doing it right, I don't think you have anything to lose. You know, having more data and disaggregated data just adds to our equity lens that we've been looking at as a board. And I think the most important part of this, one of the most important parts of this resolution, is that it clearly states the threshold for using physical intervention when it says imminent risk or harm. And I think that most of you already do it right, but that is not across the state. When I shared this with my own superintendent, she was one of the ones that was asking for more data. They work closely around all the Winooski areas. So Mike, who's the Harwood superintendent, too, have been talking about this, and just it is really important for all our kids. And I don't think you have anything to lose if you're already doing it right. So with that, are there any other more questions? Otherwise, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of not passing this resolution, as moved by Diane and second by Jim, please signify by raising your hand. And I repeat again, that would mean to vote down the resolution. Jim, I have one. Okay. 2 to not pass this resolution. 3, 4, 4. Okay. All those to oppose the motion to not pass, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Do you have that right? 6. Yeah. So I guess we would look for another, would it be clearer to look for another motion, Sue, and ask to, yeah, okay. So could I have a motion to pass as a regular resolution?
So moved.
Okay, and second by Diane?
Second, yeah.
Okay, so moved by
I'm
Michael.
sorry, can you tell me who the motion was? I just heard a voice. I didn't hear a name.
Okay, so moved by Michael Inners to pass as a regular resolution. Second by Diane Kirsten-Pittman. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did we gain 1 vote? No, 7. Okay. All those opposed to the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Have 1,
Can you tell me how many yeses there were?
7. And opposed, we have 1, 2, 3 is what I'm counting. Any abstentions? 1. 1 abstention. All right. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully the last one of this, because we still have some other work to do and we have 5 minutes. The resolutions committee is also for remote school meetings. I'm gonna try to, yeah, I don't know. The committee recommended to not pass. We had a lively discussion about this. I just wanna, you guys had a chance to read it. I just wanna emphasize that this will come up at the legislature, at the session, in this next session. And you know, just thinking about the flood that just happened right now and how we all had to move into being more creative. It just gives a tool to our boards to be able to have that remote school board meeting. I would be looking for a motion. Mark, is that why your hand is up? Mark Shelburne?
I move that we recommend pass.
Thank you. As a regular resolution, is that is the regular,
yeah,
is the one
yeah.
that we revisit again?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So Mark moves to pass as a regular resolution, second by Diane with 2 to make sure she got it. Diane, right? You got that, Carrie?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Thank you.
Right. Okay, Mark.
So one, we're talking about adding a tool to the tool belt that can be used. There's no requirement. It very clearly says, I don't have it up on my screen, but voluntary, I believe. And second, this isn't just for regular board meetings. We all have a lot of committee meetings also that currently have to have somebody in person. And it's can be a problem for a lot of people, and it can create an issue where people can't serve on the committees. So I think that this is a really important thing to move forward with in 2023 and beyond.
Thank you, Mark. And that was a good point. Michael Inners?
I'm on the other side on this, and I do not think we should allow boards to hold meetings that are completely remote with no public access other than remote. Because that's what this is really asking for. It's phrased voluntary as such, but it's not voluntary for the members of the public that don't have access to the internet. And there are a lot of them in areas like district I'm in, who do not have sufficient access. There's nothing in the current law that prevents you from having a meeting where all the board members who can't make it participate remotely. But what this is asking for is allow boards to have a meeting where there is no physical access whatsoever. You have to have internet access to participate. And I think that is just take the equity lens, issue here. There are still, I mean, it may not be a problem in some parts of the state, but it certainly is up here. There are lots of people who don't have the access. And if there's no physical location, then they are cut out. They can't participate. So I do not think we should support this. I think it's shutting out a certain portion of the public from our open meetings.
Mark?
So I just want to remind you that for all the COVID rules that and policies that were set up, phone access was required. So it's not just internet. People have to be able to call in on the phone. And like up north, down here in the south, internet is questionable at best. We've had lots of people that call in on a regular basis to meetings, and if it has opened up access to the public in ways that wasn't opened up before. And I don't think that having multiple modalities, being internet and phone, I think is sufficient to keep a public meeting public.
Thank you, Mark. Diane? Diane, you had your hand up?
I do.
Go ahead.
I think that while, you know, I hear you, Michael, and I think that we have to remember that we're not making legislation. We're just talking about amending the open meeting law. We don't know how they'll end up amending it, how it'll be stated so that there's always a physical location, or that there's always an option for people who don't have internet access. But I'm just concerned that if we don't address it and then all of a sudden it's not an option going forward, whenever there's any kind of an emergency or any number of things that can happen in our future, that becomes a problem. Then we have to write an emergency law for whatever new thing there is. So I just look at it as it's a general broad stroke. It doesn't actually delineate all the details that would happen in the legislation. And so I'm just on the side of having that option for people in all types of meetings, not just school board ones. My husband's on 2 other committees that often have to meet as well.
Well, and we are all responsible school board members that have to read our communities and make sure that we provide the best access for our communities as needed. So with that in mind, we have oh, I forgot to write. Did I had a motion? Mark, you made a motion. Yes, right? Yeah, I just forgot to
Yeah,
write.
motion to pass, recommend pass.
Mark and Diane was the second, right? I just forgot to, okay.
Correct.
So all those in favor? Oh, Michael, you have another clarifying point. We are on time. I just want to do a check.
No, I'm just, this is just exacerbating the digital divide. And it's, you know, it's easy for us sitting here who are all used to doing it this way, but I don't think it's appropriate for public bodies. So.
So I'm gonna ask for all those in favor, please signify of passing as a regular resolution, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2. Eight, right? Okay. Any opposed? Please signify by raising your hand. We have 1.
Did you say that was 8, Flor?
8
yeses?
8 yeses, yeah. And 1 opposed. Any abstentions? Hearing none. Okay, that finishes up that part of the work. Am I missing anything? Checking with my team, Kara or Sandra, that's that part. And then let's move into the committee also had some recommendations for a regular, resolutions to review and to amend. And some to continue and one to delete. I was hoping to pass it as a slate, if that's okay with you, Neil and Sue. Everybody had the packet.
Yeah,
So I would be looking
okay
for a
with me as
motion.
long as it's okay with your board.
Okay, so I would be looking at a motion to pass the one amendment, the continuing the regular resolutions, 1 deletion, Mark.
1 deletion or 2?
Let me see. I think it was 1.
There are 2 on the sheet.
Oh, I see the other one. Yes, sorry, I can't count on my.
So I'll move that we follow the committee's recommendation on the 5 continuing resolutions listed on page 15 of the meeting packet.
Second by Nancy. All those in favor, well, any discussion, any questions? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8. Zoom keeps moving everybody around every time somebody raises their hand. It's so, ah, my God. Okay, I think we have unanimous. Yes, okay. Well,
So was that 8 or was it unanimous?
unanimous? Isn't it? Cara, I'm pretty sure it was unanimous. So, right. So I'm not gonna look for any abstentions. I'm not gonna, unanimous. All right, back to you, Neil. Did I
So
miss?
the regular
I missed-
resolutions.
Yeah, you've got
Yeah.
one more section there, Flor, still.
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
I'll give you a motion that we accept the committee's recommendations on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 regular resolutions on page 17 of the meeting packet.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second? Bart is seconding
I'll
that.
second that. Yep.
So Bart.
Can
Mark,
someone from the staff put that on there? I'm still working on the last part.
what do you mean, Carrie? So it was moved by Mark and second by Bart?
On the minutes.
Oh, on the minute. Okay, all right. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do I have that right, guys? 10 is what I see. So it's unanimous again, I think. Any opposed? I can't imagine. Any abstentions? All right, good work, everybody. Thank you. Back to you, Neil.
Flor, amazing job, committee. I know that this is tedious and all of that stuff, but I appreciate all of the reflection and the review and the thoughtful comments that went along with it. Super helpful. I'm glad to have this stuff ready to go. We can then look forward to annual meeting in a couple of months. So thank you for all of the hard work. Next, we're going to move on to report of the executive committee on proposed bylaws changes, and I can say we have no proposed bylaws changes. Is there any questions for the executive committee on their recommendation for no proposed bylaws changes? No. All right, we are going to move on in our agenda then to a regional meeting update and discussion of organization. And Sue, do I kick that over to you or?
Yes, please. Thank you. So the regional meetings are going to be held remotely on 4 dates in September. We have been highlighting them regularly in our weekly emails. And if you'd like to find them on our website, you can go to our events tab and you'll see that there's a regional meetings webpage, and it has links for you to go and register for your regional meeting. And speaking of registering, please register as soon as possible for your regional meetings. In your board packet, there is a page with a list of the regions, their meeting dates, and the expiration terms of all of you on the board, the regional representatives. If your term is expiring in 2023, we need to know whether or not you plan to run for office again. So we need to know from the following people whether you are running. Suzanne Buck, David Chandler, Bart. I always have a hard time saying your remembering how to pronounce your last name.
It's Bazayo.
Bazayo. Okay, Bart Bazayo. I'm going to remember it now that I've said it.
Thank you.
Tara Sweet, Gaston Bathalon, Barbara Postman, Mark Kaufman, Lisa Miser, Martine Gulick, Dan MacArthur, and Nancy Russell. So all of those people, your term expires in 2023. And when I get done here, maybe you can let us know, your plans, if you know them. If your term is expiring in 2024, you're going to be responsible for running the business meeting and the election for your region. And I will email a script to you beforehand. And then the regions with open seats that we currently know of, this could change as people decide whether they're running again or not. But we have in East Chittenden region, there's a seat that opened up because Colleen McKinnon no longer serves on a school board. And we actually have one person who's already expressed an interest in running for that seat. So that is great. In Rutland, there's a seat that's opened up because Adrian no longer serves on the school board. So for instance, like in Rutland, there's going to be, I believe there's going to be 2 elections because Lisa's term is up, but also Adrian's seat has opened up. So one of those elections will be for a 1-year seat and one will be for a 2-year seat. In West Chittenden, there has been an open seat since last year that could not be filled. So that is there. And then in Windham, a seat opened up because Mark Schauber no longer serves on a school board. So there'll be 2 elections in Windham also. And in Windsor, a seat is open because Amy McMullen resigned from her school board and the VSBA board. So please take a close look at your region and if needed, solicit interest from school board members who would be interested in serving on the VSBA board. If they are interested, please ask them to email Carrie and me and let us know of their interest and include a photo and a short bio because we put that into the regional meeting materials. Just a little bit about the program for the regional meetings that happens after the business meetings. It's going to be on Vermont's first in nation PCB testing program for schools. As all of you know, that's a major initiative. It affects nearly every district in the state. And whether your district has completed testing or you're in line for future testing, it's really important for school board members to understand the requirements and the funding of this complex program. So we put together a panel of experts that are going to provide some important information. That's going to include the legal requirements and process of the PCB testing program, the status of testing, which schools have already been tested and what lies ahead for those that are in line to be tested, current results of testing for those that have been tested, fiscal and operational effects on districts where the levels exceed the standard, funding available for remediation, removal, and if necessary, relocation costs. And lastly, the latest on the pending litigation that was initiated by the Attorney General's office. Carrie is just going to let you know briefly right now about a model email she has created for you to use to email your members in your region, encouraging them to attend their regional meeting. And then after she does that, we can go back to that list of people that I read off to see if you know whether you're running again or not. So take it away, Carrie.
Hello, everyone. So you may remember in our strategic plan that one of the items in the strategic plan are to encourage you all to communicate more with your local boards. And we have done this a couple of times so far in the shared document that we give you with the contact information for your local boards. We've given you a couple of examples of emails that you can use to send out. We're going to do that again with the regional meeting. Tonight after the meeting, I'll put them all up. I'll reshare your contact information spreadsheet. And one of the tabs will have on it an example of an email that you could use should you want to regarding the regional meetings. You can change it in any way you want to. We just remind you to please copy Sue and Neil and please place it in the log that's on that spreadsheet. The second tab is the log, the communications log. That's both for us to know that something went out as well as your other representative from your region to know that something went out, and it helps us to measure for our strategic plan monitoring tool. If our processes are currently working to encourage you to email more with your local board members. That's all. Do you have any questions? Back to you, Sue.
Thank you very much, Carrie. So some of these people are not here tonight, but any of the people on this list that are here that would like to respond, you can either put it in the chat or raise your hand and respond. So I'll read the list again. These are the people we want to know from, whether you're running or not. Suzanne Buck, David Chandler, Bart Bazio, Tara Sweet, Gaston Bathalon, Barbara Postman, Mark Kaufman, Lisa Meiser, Martine Gulick, Dan MacArthur, and Nancy Russell.
And so I see right away you can put down Nancy and Bart as definites for running again. All right, gang. Any other questions about the regional meetings? Mark, go ahead.
So for like Wyndham, where there are 2 seats up, do you want the outgoing person, in this case myself, to run that meeting, or?
That is a good question. Neil, you and I had talked about that a little bit, and I think in that case we had normally had someone else run it, but I'm not sure. Do you remember what we've done in the past?
In the past, yeah, if we didn't, like I have stepped in to be able to run those meetings. I think what we might want to do, Sue, is just maybe see if there's any clarity in the bylaws about that as well.
I don't think the bylaws cover that.
Okay, then maybe what it boils down to is me checking my schedule and making sure I could be there for that meeting to be able to run this meeting. Otherwise, maybe we do turn it over to somebody like a Mark for that. So
We'll let you know, Mark.
Yeah, how about, I was gonna follow up. I was like, how about to be determined? If that's okay.
That works.
All right. Any other questions about the regional meetings? Please talk them up, folks. If you can, get your board to show up, right? Good time can be had by all. All right, moving on in the agenda to the 4th quarter financial report, and I'm going to turn it over to Treasurer Extraordinaire Jim Salzgiver.
Okay. Everybody's favorite part of the meeting. Yes. Okay. The 4th quarter, we actually, as you'll see, the numbers are there. Happy to take any questions. Things are in good shape. We're basically in very sound financial position. For the year, we ended up significantly ahead of budget, basically because the primary factor was really our a significantly lower than expected cost on collective bargaining support. That has a tendency to reverse. We'd expect that in this coming, we basically didn't have a lot of activity. We budgeted at a relatively flat level from year to year, so some increases. And this year was a slow year, so we had budgeted 152 and spent 63. We expect that to probably reverse out, and that's what we're showing in our upcoming budget is we're essentially the surplus we have from this year will probably be spending in the next year to cover additional collective bargaining supports. Other than that, the budget came in reasonably on target. We had a slight underspend on our people, just as we had a lot of turmoil in our staffing during the year that led to a lower than budgeted personnel cost. But next year, we all know that we've gone from 4 to 5 people. We have the best 5 people around, so they're going to cost a little bit more. So next year, we're going to see that increase. But ended up the year in a pretty good place. Also, just from the finance committee, we got the approval from you guys to begin investing our funds a little bit differently. That actually has been now initiated, where we put a portion. We had bumped up our restricted reserve account to meet the 4 to 6 months, be closer to the 4 to 6 months that we're supposed to be maintaining. And we put some of those funds into investments, and we think that'll be a positive impact on our income in the coming year. That we didn't budget for an increase, but I have a feeling that'll be a positive item. So happy to take any questions. One of the things we had a couple of grant amounts that we received during the year but not huge, but significant enough. And happy to take any questions.
Gang, any questions for Jim? Seeing none. All right. Thank you so much. Hey, that means you did a great job, right? No questions means you answered every one of them proactively. Awesome. Moving on then in our agenda to VSBA president election. So before we jump into that, just let folks know we elect the president at this meeting, but they don't start serving again until at the end of the annual conference. The other thing that I want to let you guys know is that after I think 4 years in this position, it is time for me to step away and give somebody else that opportunity. So if you were thinking about making a nomination for me, you can now rapidly think about the next person that you would like to nominate. So with that, I will open it up to nominations, and I see Mark's got his hand up.
Sorry. I would like to nominate Floor for president of the VSBA.
All right. Are there any other nominations for VSBA president? I'm not seeing any, so I'm looking for that big vote of confidence for Floor as VSBA president. Everybody put your hand up so we can get a count. That is indeed, yeah, that's unanimous. That is unanimous. Congratulations, Floor. Awesome. Gang, I'm not going away. I get to be your immediate past president, so you haven't gotten rid of me just yet. So we'll still be around. With that, I want to turn it over to the VSBA Strategic Plan Monitoring Report.
Hey, Neil, could I just interject?
Oh, sure.
You've been a great leader. Good guidance. Thank you for your efforts. I know it's a ton of effort.
Please, thank you.
You
so
really
much.
held us together here for a long time, so thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't just me, gang. It wasn't just me. All right. Strategic Plan Monitoring Reports.
I have, we're gonna share the reporting tonight. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of information, and then I'm gonna pass it on to Debbie to talk about what's been happening with board development. And Sandra will talk a little bit about superintendent evaluations, and Kara will talk about the policy review service. So there's something I wanted to tell you about that's actually not on the report, but I think it's really important because it helps us be able to do everything that we report to you on as far as the strategic plan goes. And that is that we held a staff retreat on July 21st at the Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies building in Burlington. It was a really inspiring space for us to hold our retreat in, and we got a lot done. We had planned a sailing adventure on Lake Champlain for later that day, which was unfortunately postponed due to the weather. But the theme of our retreat was building an ecosystem of well-being and community care at the VSBA. So what we did was look at ways that our organizational practices can help support each other, and ways that we can focus our resources on the goals outlined in the strategic plan. Some of the organizational practices we developed and agreed on included communication practices, building a culture of fun and wellness, and cross-training employees to allow other employees to have meaningful time off. As part of building our ecosystem of well-being and community care, we decided to ask the board to consider approving 2 days per year for each employee to use for community service and volunteer work. So we'll be submitting that request at a future board meeting for your consideration. You know, when we met, it was in the time when all the flood recovery was happening, and we all sort of expressed that we wish that we had more opportunity to help our communities with that. But also we talked about wanting to be able to volunteer in the education space as well, if the board were to approve something like that. So I'm going to pass it over to Debbie to talk about board development. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So one of the key results in our strategic plan monitoring tool, as you probably are aware, is to provide relevant and timely information regarding systems, resources, and professional development for school board members and boards, as measured by satisfaction surveys that allow for disaggregated data on respondents. One of the goals under this key result is whole board development, and that's one of the ones that I'm in charge of doing. And that goal reads that by December 2025, we will annually facilitate at least 60 sessions of 1 hour or more of whole board development with an overall satisfaction rating of a 4.5 on a 5-point scale. So just to give you a little update on what's happened over the summer, we have managed to do 3 whole board trainings this summer, and we have 5 more scheduled before the end of the summer. With staff turnover and the gap in the board services director role between Phil and myself, and also with the flooding this summer, which did result in at least 1 board training being canceled and another one being postponed, I think that we are doing pretty well meeting the request of school boards from around the state in light of the challenges that we've had this summer. So that's all I have for you this evening. And I'll hand that over now to, I guess, Sandra.
Thanks, Debbie. With regard to superintendent evaluations, we have a key result that says it addresses board and superintendent relationships by saying providing annual training on board superintendent relationships, including hiring, evaluating, and working effectively together. In addition to the superintendent evaluation being in our strategic plan, you may know that this is now embedded in the new governance standards. So it's definitely something that we're looking at really closely right now. I wanted to just give you some numbers. In FY 20, 21, and 22, the VSBA averaged about 3 superintendent evaluations a year. In FY 23, we did 7. Sue started transitioning this scope of work to me around March. And so thank you, Sue, for the mentoring. And now I'm trying to take the lead role on this. And we already have 4 or 5 superintendent evaluations in the works right now for FY 24. So Carrie and I are meeting next week to talk about looking at our communications plan and our materials and updating anything that needs to be updated. We'll communicate that to you soon.
All right. Next up, policy review service, which is key result 4.1.3. The stated goal is to increase usage of our policy review service from 1 in 2022 to 3 in 2025. Just as Sue has been transitioning superintendent evaluations to Sandra, Sandra has been transitioning policy review services to me. I completed 1 review with tremendous support from Sandra this summer, the Greater Rutland Supervisory Union. So Sandra and I divided that work, and I will be presenting the results of our audit at a board meeting in August. We're waiting for confirmation from Barry for another review this fall. And when Debbie and I were doing a training last week at the Patricia Hannaford Career Center, one of the board members from Mount Abe asked us if we were still providing that service. So hopefully we'll be creating additional opportunities for policy reviews.
Does that round it out, gang?
Yes, that rounds it out.
That's a lot of work. Thank you, guys. Mark, go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. So first of all, I want to compliment you guys on the strategic planning report. I've always been really impressed with it. I think the new one's even more impressive, which is why I'm speaking up now, because I would love to see a way to push this out to our local boards. I had a discussion over the last couple of weeks with a number of boards in this area, number of people on boards in this area, and they would love to have a template to be able to implement. So maybe something at the annual conference that talks about it. But I would really love to see that. I think local boards would really benefit from having such a really an awesome template that you guys have put together.
Thank you very much, Mark. We did do a session at the conference, but it was pre-pandemic, so that was a while ago. So we'll definitely take your comments into consideration to figure out a way that we could easily provide this to people.
Yeah, I'll echo Mark's sentiments as well too. Ever since the beginning, since I first joined the VSBA board, this monitoring report, which has gone through a few iterations now, it started out great, and now it's just even better than it was before. And it always struck me that it could potentially be a template or a tool that we could pass down to local school districts as well too, because I think it's well done and well executed. So, Jim, go
Keep
ahead.
it behind the paywall.
Yeah, agreed.
No, definitely want to add to that, kudos for the strategic planning monitoring report. It's very good. Also, you guys do such a fabulous job on the training side that I'd mentioned to you before, but I figured, what better time than at a VSBA board meeting to say, my district is also very interested in some policy governance follow-up training. So I kind of mentioned to some of you guys before, but I figured maybe I could start a trend of people, putting up their hands at VSBA board meetings or word training. But we'll be in touch with you shortly. Just wanted to, it is such a fabulous resource to have available.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments, questions on the strategic plan monitoring report? All right, not seeing any. We're going to move on then to consent agenda, which includes our June minutes. Any corrections to anything in the June minutes first before we take a motion? All right, seeing none. If somebody wants to make a motion for the consent agenda. Mark, go ahead. Don't be shy. Did we lose Mark right before he was going to make the motion? Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I thought putting my hand up made the motion.
No,
I move
dude,
to
you got to
accept
say
the
it out
consent
loud.
agenda.
Thank you. All right, motion to accept the consent agenda by Mark, seconded by
I'll second that.
Jim Salzgiver. All those in favor of the consent agenda, raise your hand. Oh, look at that. Mark Clough shooting back into the picture at the last minute to raise his hand. Nicely done. That is unanimous for the consent agenda. New business board, 3 items quickly that I wanted to bring up. One, annual meeting, please talk it up. We would like to see if we could get as many folks there as possible, have a greater attendance this year than we did last year. Second thing is next week, Floor, Sue, and I will be going to NSBA Leadership Conference out in Salt Lake City. And we will report back to you on that. A great opportunity to get together with board members from, well, I like to say across the country, but some of them have left the NSBA, so it may not be the entire country. The last thing is, and if you hadn't seen your email since, well, probably like late morning, early afternoon, we are going to do, the collective we, the Northeast region is going to do a regional meeting this fall. VSBA had budgeted to be able to send all 5 members of the executive committee. We've got 3 folks on the executive committee that have prior commitments or are unable to attend, which means that we can make the offer then to 3 other board members if somebody would like to attend. VSBA will cover transportation, lodging, conference fee, meals. We don't cover alcohol, just in case you were wondering. And so if you are interested in going, please reach out to myself and Sue. If we get more than 3 folks that are interested, then I'll just throw the names in a hat and we'll pick 3 out at random just to be fair with the process. Michael Inners, you got a question?
Yeah, where is it located?
In beautiful Massachusetts. I'd have to look at I get the agenda.
Burlington,
Burlington,
Mass.
Burlington, Mass. Yeah, so don't head north. It's the other Burlington. So
South
the
for
agenda, exactly. The agenda and location and logistical information was included in that email. So if you haven't had a chance, take a look at it, later on tonight or tomorrow, and just reach out if you are interested. That is all I had for new business. Anything else that I'm possibly missing?
The only thing that I would just want to remind people of is that the password protection is going into effect on the website on August 15th. So we've been putting it into every weekly email, letting people know, and there's instructions in the weekly email as to how to register on the website so that you'll be able to, get into those password protected areas.
Nice. All right. Any other new business items, gang? All right, pretty impressive tonight. We had a big agenda. I didn't think that we'd get done on time, but not only did we get done on time, we got done early. Good job, gang. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Thank you, everybody.
Nice.
Put a little note there.
Motion to adjourn by Flores, seconded by Diane. Everybody in favor of the motion, have a good evening. Thank you, gang.
Night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.